Hello everyone, my name is Agnieszka, and my presentation is, I think, very different from what you're going to see. So I don't have a single slide with a movie, and not even one picture. I have lots of numbers, and I hope they will turn out useful. And just to set the expectations very straight, I don't think I'm going to discover a new continent for you guys here, because you all work with developers, and you all know what works with developers and for developers. Sometimes the only ingredient missing is an element of data or proof that you could use in a conversation with a wider audience, like when you talk in your company, when you try to convince your company to certain ways of working, and then you need to prove it, back it up with some numbers. So just relax, enjoy. I hope it turns out useful. Next few slides. All the data I'm going to share with you today that evolve around how to make developers happy at work come from an international online survey that we have conducted in August this year. We collected over 2,000 responses, and briefly I just wanted to show you the sample structure from which we derived the conclusions. So as you can see, in the sample we had companies of various sizes. We had both very small companies, up to 200 employees. That was almost 40% of the sample. But we also had a significant representation of enterprises, over 5,000 employees. In terms of seniority level, we can see that approximately 35% of the sample were below 4 years of experience, developers working professionally less than 4 years. And I would say the sample structure is pretty similar, perhaps 5% of them older in terms of experience than the one reported by Stack Overflow, for example. The last graph on my left shows what type of companies those developers worked for. So 70% of the participants worked for companies who produce their own services or products, and almost 30% of the sample were representatives of software houses and outsourcing companies. So these are the people we learned from. And the first questions that we obviously were very interested in is, do developers like what they do? And I guess you all know the answer to this question, right? The simple answer is yes. In our survey, 71% of respondents mentioned that they would still like to be developers in 10 years' time, which is great. It's a beautiful number. Some more inquisitive people could ask, what about the rest? 29 is still missing. So we asked them, and they were able to provide open answers to share their dreams and plans about future positions. And this is the word cloud that came from what they were sharing with us. So surprisingly, they don't want to be developers, but they still want to stay in development, majority of them. They want to be leads, technical managers, architects, experts, CTOs or founders. Some of them want to retire, which is absolutely cool at a certain point in life. So when you put it all in one box, 92% of developers say basically they're very happy with their line of work. So the question is, why to do anything about it, right? I mean, happy people, is there any need to introduce any improvements? Well, yes, because as you know, it's one thing to like what you do, and it's another thing to like what you do in the place you're doing it in. And what is very visible is that when a developer is a newcomer to an organization, so changed jobs less than a year ago, they're super happy. It's a honeymoon phase. All of us enjoy new work, new challenges, new people, very optimistic. Now, unfortunately, with time, that changes. And approximately 3-4 years in one company makes them extremely, extremely dissatisfied. So the question is there something we, not the HR department, not people operations, but us, people working with developers, is there something that we can do to hopefully make them more satisfied and happier in their place of work? So what seems to work with developers? Well, one of the crucial elements to have the sense of satisfaction from work is to have a sense of success, right? When you work, you believe you deliver something valuable. And interestingly enough, developers seem to be a group of people that experience it a lot at work. altogether, 78% of them mentioned they do experience it even more often than once a week, with 21% saying that, every day, I feel it every day. So what we were interested in is what fuels this sense of success, and what can we do today to make sure our teams and our developers are in this successful group. And before I show you what we came up with, I have a question for you. So, which factors, in your opinion, out of the ones mentioned on that slide, could actually differentiate between the happier, the experiencing sense of success, and the ones who don't develop as? Is it years of experience in coding? I just started versus I'm an expert. Is it something that could, I'm a junior, I'm happier, and I'm a senior, I know it's not a success. Okay, nobody voted for that, thank goodness. Way of testing the code, whether testing first or testing after, or not testing it at all. Okay, I see. So let's see in a moment. Working for a product company versus software house. Ooh, many hands ups. So I know I would say we tell each other stories about how that works, but the data doesn't prove that it differentiates between the sense of success and not having it. Just a spoiler, no more slides about that one. Size of company, working for a small one versus enterprise. Interesting. No. So again, that didn't come out from the data. And using pair programming or not using pair programming. Ooh, lots of hands. So let's see what numbers we came up with and what could be the potential reason for it. So one of the things that really differentiated the developers is whether they worked in test-driven development or not. So just to make reading all these following graphs easier, the bluer the better. That's the easiest solution. And then the darker the blue, even better. So as you can see, among people who experience, the developers who experience sense of success every day, 53% of them are people who work with test-driven development, or test first, right? And those who experience this less often, in those groups we see those who test after or don't test at all far more often. Interesting. I would say I can imagine why it could be so. It's just a hypothesis, but if you start from setting an expectations towards your code, and then you write a code and it immediately proves to be okay, or it immediately shows you where to introduce corrections and then gives you the green light, there's this immediate spike of, that is done, I can go to the next step, right? So it seems to fuel the sense of progress, the sense of success. We asked how many of the developers had any experience with test-driven development, and I was kind of surprised to see this number, 33%. But let's remember, this is a worldwide sample, so this could be different for any local developer community. And it's a shame that it's 33% and not necessarily 54%, because what we've also noticed that the teams that work with test-driven development, they believe they deliver faster. So when we ask, okay, how long does it take you to bring your idea from just an idea to an actual implementation phase? And it takes 54% of test-driven development users mentioned that it takes them up to a week. So it's faster than the other groups. So interestingly enough, it seems that TDD works both for the developer teams because it makes them more successful, experience the sense of success more often, and also for the business because it makes the teams faster. Pair programming, which many of you voted for, also proved to work well. So as you can see, again, we are looking for the bluest of the lines. So the people who don't use pair programming, they are on top of the graph. They don't have a lot of blue, right? they don't have the sense of success as often as the ones at the bottom of the graph who are actually permanent pair programming users. They use it every day. So there 45% of pair programming users mention that they experience the sense of success every day. Not that many developers use pair programming often. So 15% of them mentions that they use it at least once a week. So it's a smaller number than in TDD. And again, a shame because, again, bringing the idea to the implementation phase is slightly faster for the teams that use pair programming. So those who use it, they are on your side. It's the right side of the graph. And the users mentioned that 60% of the users mentioned that they deliver in up to a week, whereas in the non-user groups, this is around 50%. So it's a 10% difference. For business, it is pretty significant. So pair programming also works for developers and from the business perspective. We were very interested in knowing what are the actual KPIs for the company that would be a dream employer for the developers. So we asked where would you want to work and why. And obviously the short list of the brands they've mentioned, we can guess, we don't need to discuss it. But the why was the more interesting thing for us. And obviously the list that came up, no surprises here. We want professional growth. We choose those companies because we can use newest technologies. We get good salary or we can be innovative there. What we didn't expect, and what really surprised me at least, is that all these characteristics were completely overridden by the one mentioned most often, which is work culture. So 23% of developers mentioned work culture as the crucial factor for choosing the dream employer they have named. And I think it's very interesting. Well, on one thing, it provides safety, security, and positive atmosphere that allows you to go slightly beyond your comfort zone and try to grow and be innovative, which is also related with the risk of failure, right? So unless you work in a good working environment, you don't have the courage, you might not have the courage to do so. And another thing is that perhaps today, working for the current companies, that's not something that developers experience very often. So that's something that they also are most willing to mention as the condition number one. And it's also not a very technical thing, right? It's not easily measurable. How do we know we have a good work culture? So it's very soft. And what surprised me was that this soft element of the dream company also translates further on to the desired characteristics of a good technical leader in a team. So yes, of course, it should be someone very expert in code and such, but the top three characteristics that were mentioned for a good technical leader are actually soft skills. So it's someone who is good at giving feedback, who has proper tools to provide me information so that I can actually grow and I can change and I can be better. And someone who's always representing the team in the dire times and difficult ones and when the challenges occur. So it helps the team itself, but as well as represents the team in front of the organization. So all these were mentioned very often and everything else was mentioned twice earlier than these three elements you see in the slide. So the third finding for us was that the good work culture and technical leader with good soft skills are also very important in making developers happy. What works? You've just seen test-driven development, pair programming, work culture, and the technical manager with soft skills. But also, if you were interested in more details and you would like to learn more about how remote works influences the way the teams work, the way the teams experience sense of success and impact on business, about preferred ways of developer learning and the gaps they experience in it, and something about their awareness of promotion paths, or interesting cute facts about commute versus salary dependencies, we will be publishing a full report. It's going to be free of charge, available online in approximately a month or so. So if you just jump to our social media at some point. I'm sure you're going to find it and, well, use it in any way you find most suitable. Thank you.